Hello, amateurs, and welcome back to our Rugby World Cup series. And for one final time, I've got Elko with me again today. Elko, how are you?
TT, it's over. It's gone. Flew by. Flew by.
Yeah, absolutely flew by. Now, we're here, obviously, to discuss the Rugby World Cup final. But before we do that, the third, fourth playoff, you got anything?
Um, I have a disappointing written down. It was a bit of a slog, wasn't it? It was a bit. Oh, uh, it was an okay game at points, but it just kind of went downhill, and the standard and the it was teams try not to lose. I think. But yeah, the only stuff I had down was Carreras' try and Theo Dan's mistake, but then his score making up for it going up the back up that end. You were at that one, right?
Yeah, and I've got to say, it felt much better in the stadium than it sounds like it did on TV.
Mm.
Because England got off to such a good start, and then Argentina just gradually clawed their way back into it. There was a real tension inside the stadium, and there was definitely all the neutrals were obviously supporting Argentina, and there weren't many England fans in there either. Really, I don't think so. Yeah, this there was a sort of a sense of dread that we might just mess it up at the end, but we managed to sneak through and cling on.
Yeah, the sort of the impression I got from commentators, ITV here, and so then listening at going on socials after was that no one wanted it to go to extra time.
Literally no one.
I go, let's stop it here, and it nearly did. Right, that Argentina had a kick um, to level it on 77 or something like that, and interesting listening to Paul Grayson after he was saying that there was someone getting treatment just in front of the kicker, and Grayson was saying he should have waited for that. It would have distracted him. He was like someone who just wouldn't have done that. Whether it did or not, we'll never know. But he snatched it. I think pulled it left in the end. But yeah, it was just good to see Underhill back, and unfortunate. We put the kibosh on it last week around Courtney doing his last game and wasn't selected. It's just like oh, but I think England deserved to win, and it was great for them to get a bronze medal, given that no one even thought that they'd get anywhere near it. So fair play.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that I'd like to pick out was the tackling throughout the game. I thought was ferocious from both sides. There were a lot of big hits going in, which was making it a spectacle in itself. Yeah, so just to round off, you mentioned Courtney Laws there, but then also Ben Youngs and Johnny May also retiring from international rugby. So just a big round of applause to those guys. Three absolute, huge men of England rugby.
Yeah, top servants, haven't they? And I mean, Youngs has been around 15 years. It's just incredible. And Danny Kerr says he's hanging on. Fair play to him. Imagine how many caps he would have got if Youngs wasn't there. That's the weird thing having two quality guys there. But yeah, and actually just as well, I thought again just to name somebody, I thought Genge was quality again. Just you mentioning ferocious hits and stuff. He was putting it about, and yeah, interesting to see where England go now with this squad and some old timers retiring. Probably a few more, I think, will leave. Not sure Joe Marler will hang on. I think he's had enough, but yeah, no, fair play to those three boys.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on to the big event. Let's get some context, Alco. Where were you watching it? Who were you watching it with? What was the scene?
Oh, I had my standard watching it in my kitchen, barbecue on, doors open, freezing cold, lots of beers, and my wife inside watching Strictly, I think. So I was on my own, but had a direct line to my rugby wife in over in Dublin. So yeah, lots of voice notes going back and forth. But yeah, it was good fun. I loved it.
Yeah, good stuff.
Where
Okay.
were you watching? You weren't there, I
I
don't think.
I was not at the stadium for this one. No, I was watching in an Irish bar called Sullivan's, which is right next door to the Moulin Rouge, and it was brilliant. Actually, it was really well set up to watch sport in. Like tons of screens everywhere, all of them nice and high enough so you can see wherever you are in the bar, and a fizzing atmosphere as well. So it was a good spot.
And was it of Irish, or I suppose most of them are probably at the game.
There was lots of people from loads of different nationalities. What must be said is that the vast majority were cheering for New Zealand.
Oh yeah, I think well we might get onto the sort of the themes and stuff. That was definitely an impression I got. I got the sense that the rugby world was hoping that New Zealand would win. Probably because of styles, I think. Maybe some personalities. But yeah, I got that impression as well that there was a real push behind the All Blacks for sure.
Mm. Now then, what do you think? What do you think about the game itself? Just sort of like overall, kind of like what were the big themes? What were the ebbs and flows?
Well, I it's a tough one. As a purist, I loved it. It was a you know two giants of the game. It was all set up, three wins, in history before, trying to go for the fourth. Um, South Africa going for the back to back. And for me, it was just two titans just going at it. The standard wasn't up to the quarterfinals anywhere near. And But it was never going to be, as you were there and you predicted during the week and had a look at the what the weather was going to do. It was, we knew it was going to be very wet. Razzie had gone with the 7-1, so we kind of knew where they were coming from. And the sort of thought process I think that we both had around how good New Zealand are in terms of execution under pressure in bad conditions. I think they'll be disappointed. I think they made a lot of unforced errors. Yes, they were pressed very hard, but I think they didn't even sort of leave points on the pitch really, apart from the two missed kicks. Arguably, the one of the tries that got disallowed for a silly mistake, but they weren't. They were just off it a little bit. Um, and Yeah, and then the other thing that we spoke about last week was around um, how deep each team's well was, and uh, South Africa were running on fumes, man. They were gone, and it was kind of they took the lead. I thought, oh my god, they're going to wipe them out, and then New Zealand started to sneak and sneak, and I thought, how the hell are the Springboks going to hang on? And to their credit, incredible sort of conditioning and how they hung on. But yeah, so as a purist, what a struggle with both teams. And I suppose if I was a new fan, I would have been kind of not really, wasn't as good as I thought it might have been, but still a great game.
Yeah, for sure, and especially because it was very stop-start as well. Quite a few TMO interventions, as you mentioned, quite a few errors, especially by the All Blacks, some of which were forced, many of which were forced, but also a lot of unforced ones as well. Particularly, there was one, I think it was in the second half, where Richie Mo'unga dropped it was basically going to be a 2-on-1 from that situation, and he dropped it for, it must just have been nerves because the ball was right there. It was right where it needed to be. So that was, yeah, it was one of my final thoughts as well at the game is that there'll be a few Kiwis that just will look back on that performance and just be really disappointed that they didn't really give their best.
No, they didn't. I think I'm sure let's speak about it now. Like it was stop start. I think Wayne Barnes had a very good game personally. He's had a lot of criticism, not really surprising from New Zealand. There's history there, but I thought he got most of it right. And a lot of it wasn't in his hands anyway. In terms of the bunker and stuff like that. But I thought he spoke to the players real well. I thought he managed it well. His communication, and yeah, it was stop start. But I don't. I mean, he wants a free flowing game. I don't think it was the conditions and the pressure that made it stop start, and probably the whole point of the bunker was to speed stuff up. There was a few times where it did slow down a little bit. I just wonder, maybe let's just push it. But we don't know what directives were given, to the referees, and it seems to have been changing and evolving through the tournament around how that was working. So I think he was pretty good, to be fair.
Yeah, and while we're talking about Barnsley, at this time of recording, he's literally just announced his retirement about an hour ago. So Cheers, Barnsley. You've been an absolute legend of the refereeing world and the rugby world. And I agree. I thought we had a really good game on Saturday as well.
Yeah, Poppy will be happy, or maybe not. But yeah, no, he's. We spoke about him last week. I think he's quality, and he has the right. Um, he understands the game from a grassroots point of view. I feel I know he gives a lot back. He does a lot for charity and does his own does his own game every year, and he loves the sport. Be interesting to see what he goes on, whether he goes back into law maybe, or does he become head of referees for World Rugby, or maybe he's going to end up in a bunker somewhere. Let's see.
We will. Okay, let's get into some of the real talking points. And the biggest one, or sorry, one of the biggest ones very early in the game was Bongi Mbonambi having to go off because Frizzell landed on his knee in an illegal fashion. I thought they got the decisions completely right. Now, just in terms of the effect on the game, I think the obvious thought, and it was my thought initially as well, was what's it going to do to South Africa's line out with Dion Fourie coming on, not a full-time hooker, and I didn't really give too much thought to the scrum. Now, I think it probably had more effect on the scrum than the line out in the end. How did you see it?
Yeah, well, I thought the unfortunate incident. It didn't look great. The visuals, we're trying to get rid of that crocodile roll. He kind of missed him and slipped, and because he slipped, he then fell onto the guy's leg. I don't think it was on purpose, but it didn't look particularly great, and he was done, wasn't he? Although there's chat that they were trying to bring him back on because they took him off as a tactical. So presumably he had some aspirin or something in the changing room that he was able to say he was able to come back on. Yeah, lineouts wise, yeah, I mean they were 60% South Africa, so 6 from 10. Only had only had 10 lineouts. That's interesting. So whether New Zealand probably didn't take advantage of that and didn't kick the ball off the park as much, arguable. Scrum time, they were 10 from 11. So I thought they did okay, but when you've got props like they have, that can shield someone who maybe isn't as good as a Marks that they could have brought on. But he was exceptional, and not only that, TT, he came on and captained the team.
Yeah.
He the captain. It's like what it's just the setup they have is just, it makes your brain hurt. But I thought he was fantastic, and I thought I thought they were the dominant side up front most of the time. But he was awesome. Fair play to him. 37 years old as well.
Yeah, only got his first cap at age 36 too. It's a phenomenal story, Dion Fourie. Yeah, I just thought South Africa didn't get the scrum dominance in the end that they would probably be looking for.
Mm.
When the bomb squad comes on, it didn't happen in this game, and I think that's probably the reason why, because Fourie ended up at hooker, and especially for that length of time as well.
Yeah.
Now, I think
Yeah.
just generally in the first half, I thought the All Blacks, and this is true throughout the game. New Zealand just tried to play. They tried to play a lot. They probably tried to play from field position that other teams wouldn't have tried to play from. And because they were making so many errors, that just allowed the scoreboard to click upwards for South Africa. And suddenly, actually, I wouldn't say New Zealand really acted like they were under any kind of scoreboard pressure. I think they just continued to play the same way, because they knew that was their best route to victory. And just too many handling errors took it away from them, and just incredible South African pressure, forcing a lot of those.
Yeah, I mean, we got to speak about the Toit. I mean, he was just, I mean, what was it, 28 tackles? Jesus. And he was, they weren't passive. He is flying out the line. And uh, I think, again, the sort of psychological battles that go on throughout the tournament, before the tournament, I think Razzie knew exactly how they were going to play and knew they were going to keep playing, and sort of had a defensive system to go after them and put them under pressure. And you're right. I think I think New Zealand were very confident, and they should have been. I mean, again, I'll go into my stats, but they had 60% possession. And it was just mad. And South Africa made 209 tackles to South Africa's 92. just mind blowing. So they had all the ball, but they just couldn't execute, just couldn't get it right. And I think Detroit and what's his name, Craig Smith, who came on. Jesus, again, another guy who's hasn't come from nowhere. I know he was involved when the lines went down, but not the most fashionable player. But geez, he was fantastic. Work rate at crucial turnovers. And yeah, they sort of let New Zealand have the ball. New Zealand just were 5% off in terms of fizzing the ball in front of people and getting their lines right. But it all came from immense South African pressure and bully boy tactics, which they're the best in the world at, clearly.
Yeah, 100%. Completely agree with all of that. I think you mentioned new people watching the game. I think most people could point out the blonde number 7 for South Africa and go, he seems to be quite good. He seems to be hitting a lot of people. So it was remarkable. Like it was so consistent throughout the game as well, though, was what really astounded me. Normally, or quite often, players sort of come in and out of games a little bit, have a good 10 minutes here, 5-minute break. Peter Steph was go for every minute of those 80. I thought he was unbelievable. Right, Sam Kane. I really feel for him because he's not a high shot merchant. He doesn't make tackles like that. I think he got caught out at a wrong time. I think the decision was correct to send him off. But I feel so sorry for him being the captain as well. It's even added feels it's such a tough one.
Yeah, look, on a human level, you just wouldn't wish it. He's going to have to live with that forever. If they had a won, you kind of get away with it, but they didn't. It happened fairly early on. He's desperately unlucky because just the way it happened, it was split second stuff. But bottom line is, he started high. He was going to, it was an offensive tackle. He was trying to dominate. He knew what he was doing in that sense. What he didn't know is where the guy's head was going to be. Creel, wasn't it? And it was the right decision by the letter law. I think the irony is that Creel, I think in the first game, did a very similar tackle, and it was never even brought up. It wasn't cited after, and so again, the consistency thing comes into it, but that's not Wayne Barnes' fault, or the officiating team on the day. But I think by the letter of the law, there was foul play straight away. He always started high. He hit him in the head. It was going to get upgraded. And on a human level, as I say, it's he must be feeling that and will do for some time. He had an amazing tournament. He's come from sort of not being highly rated, let's be fair, and sort of people thinking that he shouldn't be there as captain, but he was awesome all the way through and led by example up until that point.
Yeah, very good point there about his recent trajectory as well, because that makes it almost harder to take as well, doesn't it? When you've made such big strides in people's opinions throughout this tournament, and for it to end like that, I felt desperately sorry for him.
Yeah, you could see, I'm not a massive fan as a player or as a coach of cameras being in players' faces and stuff, but I understand why they do it for the game. But you could see his pain when they upgraded it. When Barnes told him that I was going to a red, and then he went straight to him, and you could see it's just devastating for the guy. Really sad. Them the breaks.
Yeah, talking about seeing people's reactions, yellow card for South Africa towards the end with God, I've forgotten his name now. Help me out.
Colby.
The winger. Yeah, Colby. He hid his face so that we couldn't see, so we couldn't see any of those reactions, which I don't blame him for at all. It must have been, to give a penalty away like that. I think it was about 7 minutes to go. Again, it was completely the correct decision. It led to a penalty, a kickable penalty, and then
he missed.
Your team down a player as well. Yeah. You must just think that is it. I've cost us the World Cup. So, again, I felt really sorry for him at the time as well.
Yeah, because I think the feeling watching it for me was New Zealand are winning this. I just felt that the diesel tank was empty. They're about to, South Africa are about to chug to a start. Think about the route they had, all the games close. It being in the pool of death. and it just, as you spoke about earlier, the injury to Mbombe and then the early substitution of Furry, which kind of messed up their bomb squad a little bit. It just felt that normally when South Africa are dominant in the second half, it didn't. It felt New Zealand were there and they had so much ball. And I think he felt that they were going to lose lose as well. He didn't. He literally didn't want to watch. And I mean, it was the right decision, but it was one of those ones, a bit like Farrell's that he didn't get against Fiji. He knew what he was doing, but it wasn't, a high tackle to the head or anything like we just spoke about with Kane. Probably makes it worse, but it wasn't much. He was trying to get ball and the man. He knew what he was doing probably, but yeah, I felt for him as well. It was quite funny watching because he literally kept it up for must have been about 8 minutes, I think, something like
Yeah,
that, over his
until the
head.
final whistle. So until the final whistle.
Yeah, and
Unbelievable.
I've seen loads of
Um,
people in the crowd are doing it as well after, and then going around having pints.
um, well, you kind of mentioned there a little bit about the South African psychology to go through what they went through to secure this World Cup. Lost a pool game, two other real tough pool games against Scotland and Tonga, and certainly in terms of physicality against Tonga. Um, and then they won every knockout game, including the final, by a single point. Now, I think this points to something that you can't measure. This points to just a cohesiveness, to like
Look,
a togetherness. A what?
look. I am joking. I'm joking. They weren't lucky.
um, yeah, it's but they've got it. Whatever it is, however you want to package it, is it environment, how they feel about each other, and the way they fight. It's not a mistake. I don't think is what I'm trying to say. So, um, fair play to them. They built something incredible, and they deserve the win.
Yeah, it's. I mean, go back to the press conference when they lost to Ireland, and Khaleesi and Nieharber was there, and they asked the question: Can South Africa still win this World Cup, having lost the game? They both just started laughing. You know, it was mad then, but it's even madder now, as they've gone on to win it. And it's not even that they've, a bit like Ireland did, they've stuck to the same thing. They've backed themselves to play the same way, and they've backed the same players. They haven't. They've changed stuff up. They've played three scrum halves in the back line. They've 7-1 it. They've 5-3 it. They 6-2 it. They've got rid of their number 10 after 20 minutes and brought in a guy who wasn't even in the squad. It's just, I mean, I presume they're doing another Chasing the Sun. I cannot wait to see what was going on behind. I mean, part of me thinks Rassie was up with his coaching staff drinking to the early hours, just having a laugh, going, well, let's just pick a card and do this. Yeah, but we know there's more to it. There's they really have pushed the envelope in terms of just changing up, and yet there's still huge criticism around their style and their bully boy and the physicality of how they play. And going back to your point around people wanted New Zealand to win because they don't do that. It's really interesting. There's people. I was listening to the Times podcast this morning, and Stephen Jones is just, oh my god, the stuff he was saying is. I have a listen. It's just, well, I mean, I don't.
I tend,
I can.
not to bother anymore.
No, yeah, he's. I don't like the guy. I think I'm one of the 55 million people blocked by him. But yeah, a lot of it. I mean, he made it personal about South Africans and being cocky and arrogant and all that stuff. I wouldn't go there, but there is points of view around the 7-1 split and what that might do to grassroots rugby, which we spoke about in a few pods back. Around, does that mean that, I don't know, Penzance or Cornish Pirates or Otley or something then start to do that, and then young kids coming through who are backline never get a chance to play to get on the bench and make a point, but I cannot wait. If there is a documentary, I can't wait to see what was going on behind the scenes, and get into Rassie's mind, because he's a genius, controversial, but no doubt one of the best rugby minds there are in the world right now.
Yeah, 100%. And as I mentioned, I think they deserve it, and they deserve all the incredible celebrations that are going on still now. I think they're still going on today from what I can see out in South Africa. Have you witnessed any of that on social media and seen
Yeah,
anything?
yeah. So I saw they were in like, it looked like a massive shopping center that they went into, and looked like there was still beverages being had. Um, and Razzie was crying. It clearly means so much to these guys. I think that's where they get a lot of energy from, around the political, social problems in South Africa, and they see themselves as, particularly Khaleesi's story as a binding force in a country that's quite divided still. And yeah, it's just awesome scenes to see the country going crazy like that. It's brilliant for the game. Did you see Marks the hooker? He was like in his pants. I think they were still in France, but he got invited across to come to the game, and he's in his pants just pouring Coke, but I presume there's rum in there, knowing those boys, into the Webb Ellis Trophy. Oh,
Yeah.
well, they must have some serious fun. Serious fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the big thing for me is all the shots that are being taken during the day. They've all got sunglasses on. I bet their eyes are just like black holes. And the other thing from the celebrations to me is the dancing of Trevor and Yankani, who that man can move. Man that size can move like that. Fair play to him.
Yeah, let's get them on Strictly. Um, yeah, it's just cool, isn't it? It's just you know, um, I read that's a traditional dance from his part of the world, and yeah, it's great for the game.
Yeah, absolutely. As we wrap up here, Alco, have you got any sort of final thoughts about the final or as the tournament as a whole?
Um, Final wise, let's see. I had a few notes written down. Wayne Barnes was the big one. Obviously, the yellows and reds conditions we've spoken about, which were very poor. Um, I think a special mention needs to go out to John Klein, who I'll admit, I'll put my hands up. I wasn't very kind on social media about him getting drafted into South Africa team, having played for Ireland 4 years ago. But he's got a World Cup medal. And what a fantastic achievement for him to have done that. Few Munster boys in there. The Munster fans are very happy about that. I think a tournament as a whole has been just thoroughly enjoyable. Can't remember half of it. Need to cut down on the booze. But yeah, no, it's been also. I think it's been a great advert for the game. Let's see where we go to. A lot of teams are in a mess, and a lot of teams are going through lots of change because of squad age and things like that. So that's going to be really interesting for us as fans, TT, and autumn internationals, and the Six Nations will roll in pretty quickly. And Eddie's gone as well, which happened in between podcasts, which we kind of predicted. And I hear on good authority he will be in Japan. Um, so God help the Japanese. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. We'll bring this one to a close then. People at home, what do you think? Are there any big points that we missed out on? Do you disagree on any of the points that we raised? I'd love to hear from you down in the comments down below, and give us a thumbs up while you're down there. And if you haven't subscribed, give it a little tickle, because there's one more daily vlog to come, and that is from the final, and that's going to get posted tomorrow. So until then, get out and play.